Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, so many of us live in those emotional spaces where we don't quite understand, but we know we have to empathize. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about how they got started, influences, state of the industry, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm assuming you do. You're listening to the podcast right now. You can find us basically wherever you find your podcasts, over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, or even you can find us every single one of our episodes archived over at our YouTube channel, and you can give us a like and a subscribe there, as well as the podcast service of your choice. That would be fantastic. You can also find us on social media. At Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all sorts of updates, and you can all either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One. I'm a little flummoxed today. I'm not doing it right, but yeah, it's at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And also, you can find us over at TikTok at In the Seats for a little bit of fun every once in a while. But finally, where it all began, please come visit us over at In the Seats. InTheSeats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, reviews, video on demand. Basically, if it's the moving image, we like to talk about it, and we love it when you come read about it. So please pay us a visit, and our hardworking team will be very, very happy that you did. On this episode, we got a fun one. We got one I didn't expect to enjoy, but I did. It's called The In-Between, and it's been on most major VOD platforms in the States, and probably in Canada too. You'd have to check. But it's a darling little independent film from writer-director Mindy Bledsoe and co-writer Jennifer Stone. And it's a two-person movie. It's about a road trip where they set out from Portland to LA. But both women have illnesses, which a lot of people do. They're invisible. They're not things that people can see, and they struggle with them, sort of, and it impacts their day-to-day life. But they decide to go out on this journey of self-discovery. But there's layers to it all, too, because the more they get on the road, they understand the physical illness, but they also see sort of a lot of the emotional damage that comes from it as well, because one of them is type 1 diabetic, and the other one has complex regional pain syndrome. And it's one of those things where a lot of us don't understand that kind of thing. But when people are living in chronic pain, it's a real thing. It's not something that you see, but it's a real thing, and it's one of those things that we need to be able to empathize with. And we really sort of get behind both these characters as they are on the road, because they've got a certain degree of heartache, and they've got real ache. But together, on this trip, they're hoping that they're going to find a little bit of closure. And it's one of those stories that is very relatable, and one of those stories that is very sort of human, where we all need to sort of take stock and understand where we're at, and not sort of, make peace. Well, I guess make peace with where we're at, but also learn how to move forward from it as well. And I talked with both Mindy and Jennifer, who were an absolute delight about the making of the film, because it's an indie film. They basically shot it out of their car as they were going up and down the highway, and it's a real charmer. And it's one of those things where, if you're looking for something a little off the beaten path, it's one of those things that's going to be for you, because it is a real interesting and humanistic slice of independent cinema that I cannot recommend enough. But before you go find The In-Between on your favorite video on demand platform, check out our talk with Mindy and Jennifer, because it's a good one.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks for the time today. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, first off, congratulations on the movie, man. I really enjoyed it. Now, I guess walk me through the initial idea of making the film and making this road trip with the two of you.
Jen, go for it.
I was like, I took that on the last one, so I was gonna give it to you. But basically, it stemmed from Mindy and I met and had an instant bond because we both have chronic illnesses that we don't let define us and don't let hold us back. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and she has complex regional pain syndrome type 2. And I think in having something like that you deal with on a daily basis that not everyone can see, you kind of have an instant bond because you get something that you can't possibly get till you go through it. So in that friendship that we created, we also wanted to create some representation, because we also talked about how we hadn't seen that on film or seen it accurately represented. I know every time I see diabetes, it's like this dramatic thing, and the characters are always just so sad and depressed. And so we were like, let's make a movie that shows accurately what those two illnesses look like on a day-to-day basis, but it doesn't define the characters, and the story isn't about that. And here's my cat. She's
Fantastic.
loves to make appearances and interviews. But yeah, so we decided to make this movie. We had 2 weeks to make it, and we wrote it over a long weekend. And I think, Mindy, it was 11 months, right? From pre-production,
from conception to premiere.
Yeah. So it was a whirlwind experience, but a great one.
Now, I mean, how much, I mean, while obviously you're going to have bullet points for the story as you go along the way, like how much of it are you hard scripting, or how much of it is sort of loose and improvisational? Because I mean, there's such great energy between the two of you, especially in the car.
Thank you. Well, it was a 65-page script that we actually wrote before we hit the road. So we knew the locations in which we wanted to stop, the towns we wanted to stop in. And we had pulled images from Google Maps on places that we thought might be interesting to shoot at. But we stayed open on the road. So it's like, we knew Las Vegas, we booked a place. Portland, we had a place booked. And we knew when we had to be in South Dakota for production. So everything in between was left a little bit open. We knew the scenes that needed to be done, but we weren't quite sure where we were going to do them. We had ideas, but we stayed open for the road. So that would be like just stopping in that weird buffalo that we put a shot glass on, and then we had ice cream like that's just found in the on the road. Like I couldn't have just looked that one up. Yes and yes, there was a lot of improvisation, but
I like improvisation.
I like it too. Improvisation, but we knew the blueprint that we had to stay in. And sometimes we would just riff off of each other and then find something that we liked and then put it in with that scene. So, a lot of hours in a car to talk to each other and riff a lot.
Well, I love that. And I mean, I think something else about the film that I really gravitated to is it definitely felt like it was in the spirit of indie filmmaking. Because I mean, I can imagine you're on the road 2 weeks. You're not exactly applying for permits and doing that kind of thing. You just have to do it kind of guerrilla style. Any fun stories, just sort of in the shoot and run style that I'm sure you had to make a lot of this film?
My favorite is, okay, just to clarify, we did 4,500 miles in 14 days and shot 97% of the movie. We had 2 pickup days.
That's amazing.
So that is a crazy amount. The biggest, is the character of Miles wasn't in the script. He wasn't, the character, Jen's character, Mads, didn't have a brother that was in her life. She still had the mother storyline was still present, but she didn't have a brother. It was somewhere outside of Las Vegas that Jen got a phone call from her friend who was on a road trip with his brother. And she told him what we were doing. And he was like, that's so cool. Listen, I could be in Portland around the 4th when you guys are there if you want any help. And then
we were like, we could use some help.
He's also an actor, Mindy. And I was like, himself to me, because yes, please. And he did. He was like, I would love to do anything. I would love to help you guys out. I love the spirit of what y'all are doing. And so from that second on, Jen and I in the car were like, okay, how do we put him in this movie? How do we make this movie better with him? And thus sprouted the character of Miles. And I rewrote the 20 pages, the third act, on the way to Portland. And so we emailed him the updated script the night before I met him, and we met him in Portland, and he was off book, and he's the linchpin to the movie. So how about that?
I like it. Now, I mean, something else about the film, which I like was definitely important. I mean, you mentioned this earlier, just about in terms of representation and sort of allowing there to be a female road trip that wasn't about the battered wife running away from her husband, or randomly hooking up with Brad Pitt along the road, or committing a crime or something silly like that. How important was it for you guys to sort of maintain a fun energy but still a realistic one?
Well,
It was
that's
very important.
very,
Yeah, I mean, it was like I said, our intention, or at least how this all started, was we wanted to make a movie that, featured strong women that were very capable, but also weren't perfect, because perfect isn't interesting and also isn't realistic. And we wanted to, feature that we have and deal with on a day-to-day basis, and not make it a deficit, not make it something that prohibits them from taking a road trip, and prohibits them from enjoying their lives. But also, too, we wanted to showcase that these women are complicated and they're multifaceted, and this is one of the many things that makes them who they are, and they're ghosts in their life, or they're demons in their life that they're running from in the movie, and that make them in their sort of in between transitional place. Junior of mourning the loss of her sister, and Mads coming to terms with the relationship with her mom, are just one of the many things that make them who they are.
Yeah.
and for me as a director, I find comedy in a lot of the drama that she just mentioned.
For sure.
That's my clutch in life, is to find the humor in it. And so that's, I never want to classify anything as just drama, because, just drama is kind of funny too. So we want to keep that balance throughout, because, well, you should.
No, I'm curious because, I mean, especially in this day and age, I mean, like you say, from conception to post, it was a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because it feels to me like these days, given the amount of content that's out there, and sort of the, I guess, how much we're all drowning in stuff to watch or stuff to be entertained by, from an artist standpoint, it feels like you can't have any sort of fear of creation. You just have to kind of say, fuck it, go do it. Is that
Yes.
sort of the spirit you have to have in terms of sort of be able to get your stuff out there and being able to have it rise to the top?
I mean, I think so. Yes. Because if we thought through the process of having made a movie traveling 4,500 miles in 14 days, like, no one would recommend that. No one would give money to that. That's unfathomable for some reason. But we didn't think that way. We just said, we have 2 weeks, we're doing it, and we're going to see what happens, and see what falls into place. And I mean, we took our experience, and that helped, make it a success. But yes, you have to just say, do it. If you overthink it, you can talk yourself out of it. I think that was one of the best things about creating this movie, is we didn't have time to overthink.
Here comes the cat.
Just doing her rounds back and forth.
She's such a scene stiller.
She really is. She really is.
And I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, particularly for you, Mindy, I'm curious, like, was this always in your mind a feature? Because I mean, making any kind of film is a daunting experience, but making a feature is probably 10 times that much more daunting.
I didn't think of it that way. I was 39 and I hadn't made a feature film yet, or directed a feature film. I had produced a feature film, and I had directed 5 short films and some music videos. And, I was great with that, and I loved doing it. So I said, of course I can do a feature. And, 40 was around the corner, and I didn't think hard enough about it to psych myself out of it. I just said, you promised yourself you were going to do a feature film before you're 40. No one's given you the $1 million+ to do it. So go figure it out yourself.
Fantastic. That is the spirit of independent filmmaking. Just suck it up and do it. Get her done.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm curious for how much was left on the cutting room floor? Because I mean, obviously, you're not shooting on film on this. You can shoot and shoot and shoot. How much did you have to leave out, or how much did you leave out of the film? Like, I'm curious how much you actually shot, especially while you were driving.
People tend to think there's way more footage than there is. We there's some stuff that hit the floor and will never see the light of day. But we had to take advantage of everything
Right.
because the days were so fast and so hard. It's like, yeah, we had Rob behind the camera and it's like, okay, we're filming. What are we filming again? And then we're in the car filming. So we had to splice together scenes too. And we would watch dailies at night. That's another thing. And Chris Lyon saved us on this. Like we would still land in a hotel and we shot HD and he would get me the dailies before I would go to sleep. So we were able to see what we were filming the day before. So we could continue on with continuity and stuff for the next day. But there isn't an enormous amount of stuff that got left out. Like we used, I would say 95% of everything we shot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that were scripted that we shot that didn't make the cut because it didn't end up with the overall narrative that we wanted. But yeah, we used a lot.
Well, I mean, I think that's a credit to both of you because, I mean, especially the moments in the car, it feels almost documentary kind of POV, like sort of fly on the wall style. And I mean, I'm curious for the both of you, because you're obviously both carrying the bulk of the material in the film. Was there a lot of rehearsal time? Was there a lot of back and forth? Or was it just a question of you knew it back and forth, going through it and writing it, like you knew it cold?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the benefit of writing it, I guess. And then having a lot of like space for improv is the fact that, you know, we did know it because we wrote it, you know, and then what we didn't know, we just would improv and kind of fill with what we organically, the rapport we naturally have. I think that day that Mindy talked about where we had 20 pages to shoot in Portland with rain, I think he was more off book than we were.
Yeah, he was.
because he, you know, we were going back and forth between, you know, creating the script and then performing it. And he just had the task of like memorizing the lines, getting it. And we were still changing words, doing things, like it was constantly evolving. So yeah, bless him. That day he was like way more off book than we were.
Well, I mean, and that is an advantage too for writing and starring in it, because I mean, obviously from the writing process to the performing process, like you said, there's going to be certain evolutions that happen along the way. So that really did feel like it came through as a bonus because you both were so in tune with sort of the story that you wanted to tell.
Yes. And being able to shoot it chronologically as much as possible really helped. I mean, you get the exhaustion in Portland because we are exhausted because it is the end of our road trip too. So, you know, those little bits of authenticity, I mean, really help in communicating that story.
Now, this is a bit of a loaded question, but it's something I always like to ask. For both of you, sort of, can you think back in your lives to like a movie or like a TV show or like a piece of work in your lives that you saw when you were younger that sort of had the light bulb go off in your head and made you want to go, you know what, I want to be in this business. I want to be an actor. I want to tell stories.
Oh, mine, Mindy, I'll go first because I feel like yours is going to be so much cooler than mine.
Oh,
I mean, I was going to be, because I grew up doing theater and that's how I started. And my first thing that I saw was my brother playing Jim Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. So with that, I was like, I'm going to be an actor and then I'm going to go to New York and be a theater actor. And then, of course, I was a 90s kid, so I saw Titanic, and that just blew my mind. And that's why I went to the West Coast instead and wanted to be in movies and TV, because I just saw all the magic of that world. So Titanic was the one that did it for me. And, you know, I just wanted to be Kate Winslet in that movie, like every other girl in the 90s.
I didn't know that about you, Jen.
Yeah, I know. It's a super basic thing. Like I started like as a kid, like drawing like naked ladies and stuff because of that movie. Like we ran those two VHSs out. My brother and I loved that movie. So, but it's just such a like fantastical world that James Cameron created. So I was like fell in love with the whole idea of movie making after that.
Well, for me, I was huge just movie fan from childhood. Like I think my parents took me to a theater when I was 3. So and my neighbor sold VHS tapes. So like, and my dad did advertising for a movie rental store. So I had this abundant amount of access to movies. So it was my happy place. And as a little girl, I just thought I could be an actor or an actress because that's all I understood. But somewhere in 1992, I saw the movie Pump Up the Volume, and this movie made me go, I want to do that. I want to make what I just saw. That movie influenced me, and it showed me music I didn't know yet. It made me think outside of the box. I grew up in a small East Texas town. It just made it kind of just exploded in my mind, and I loved the idea that someone had written this and created it. So that was the first time I ever thought about making movies.
I love it.
But I didn't actually start pursuing filmmaking until I was 24.
Oh, right.
Which was not 1992.
I didn't know that about you either, Mindy. Thanks for asking that question, David.
Yeah, it was a good one.
About each other.
And can I just say, I love the fact that I'm talking to people who understand the concept of running a movie on a videotape, onion skin thin, because you can't explain that to the younger generation just watching it over and over again.
I don't get
or
me
we
started.
get used to the skip in the movie, and then you see it on TV and it doesn't skip.
Like, I don't have to rewind this and then like do like this with my finger in it. Like what?
Open it up, blow.
Yes, the blow. The blow.
We started doing the blow long time ago.
Oh yeah. Now, I mean, I guess just to put a bow on all this, I mean, at the end of the day, for the two of you, what is the hope for the film? Like, is it just to get an audience, or to sort of, get, I guess, maybe just a bit of recognition for a female-driven story that isn't that's realistic, that isn't trying to be sort of overtly one way or the other, that is just telling a story about two human beings.
Yeah. Oh, you nailed it right there. I mean, that's what I want. I mean, I'm extremely happy with the fact that this is done well in the CRPS community. And I've got to know a lot of people because of this film. And I'm grateful for that. On a selfish level and a career level, yeah, I want the recognition for the film, because I think we did a great job with such limited resources. Just imagine what I can do with a little extra money. Is that a good pitch?
That is a good pitch.
And for me, like it's what I want out of every movie that I'm involved in, especially as heavily as I was involved in this one, is I want people to see themselves, and I want people to reflect on their own lives and learn something, either about themselves or about the person next to them. And we've been on the festival circuit with this movie since 2019, and we've had such great conversations with people, whether it's people with chronic illnesses, without, people who know people that deal with those challenges every day. Like people have had reflections because of this movie that I never anticipated, and that's been such a gift. And so I just hope that they continue to have those.
I mean, the good part of me wants to agree with Jen, because that's so true. We've seen reactions in people that we never thought would happen. It's not what we intended. And so it's this extra satisfaction, that the most fulfilling thing that's come from it really is seeing the satisfaction and the happiness in other people.
No, I mean, I guess that brings up a follow-up for me though, because I'm curious. Obviously, when you're working independently, you've got a bit more creative freedom. Like, do you think you could have told the same story if you had like the $500,000 budget, that kind of thing? Or do you think it maybe would have been more limiting?
Mindy's
Good
just thinking of
question,
all she could have done with the $500,000. Which, I mean, here's the thing is, like, and Mindy, let me know if you disagree, is I feel like a $500,000 budget on an indie movie allows for a lot of things, right? A lot of things that you don't necessarily have, or we didn't necessarily have on this. But having said that, the things that it allows, also the trade-off is the freedoms it takes away. So I can see, funding, producers or funding people being like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that. Can you make that, like, can you spell that out for me a little bit more? And so I think, we would have been robbed of a little bit of nuance, a little bit more of like the character traits, complications. That's just what I've seen in the past of, with money comes a little bit more of, for lack of a better term, the dumbing down.
Yeah. It would have been a little
story
more,
sometimes,
more
unfortunately,
hallmarky, as it were,
a little bit,
as a producer for money, a little bit of money just makes you need more money.
It's
so
never
when
enough.
I think about like making a budget for the movie we made, an actual budget that in which I could actually employ a real crew instead of using ourselves, that it's an unrealistic, whether $500,000 isn't enough money to make that film.
Yeah.
So when I start going, well, if I have this money, then we need the permits. We need the insurance. We need. So when you have the money, it goes away quickly, and then you just need more. So yeah, I'm taking away my pitch for more money by extending it. One day I'll experience it though.
But I mean,
I think I just want to pay myself. I look forward to that one day. Yeah.
If living with the trade-off of McDonald's and Popeyes being catering while they're on the road as opposed to something better, I think, but it gets you the creative freedom. I think that's a good trade-off.
Yeah, we traded a lot of Subway sandwiches.
Oh,
a lot of Subway.
Yeah.
But you know what?
A lot of gas station food.
Oh, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? Just congratulations again on the movie, and thank you both for the time today. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.